Welcome to Jumpstart to Tech, your podcast host, Vinod Akanuri. Hello, everyone. My name is Vinod Akanuri. I'm the founder and CEO of Jumpstart to Tech. I'm here today with Dawn Myers. She's the founder and CEO of The Most and Ritualist, and she has a successful pitch from ABC's show Shark Tank with Mark Cuban and Emma Grede. She's definitely creating innovative products to meet the nuanced needs of women of color, and definitely coupled with the role in building with DMV with startup companies, and definitely truly inspiring. I'm definitely glad we was able to connect today because it's been a while, but I'm really glad we was able to connect today though. Thank you
Me
for
too.
coming.
Thank you so much of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, before we start, definitely, want to get to know more about you. My audience wants to know about who you are. I know you're famous in Baltimore and stuff, so they want to know who you are. What you do, and what are you doing for the community of Baltimore?
Yeah, so who I am. My name is Dawn Myers, founder and CEO at The Most, which is a family of brands. One of those brands is Ritualist. We make tech-enabled appliances for texture hair.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I do for the community in Baltimore? I'm not sure how impactful I am here per se, but what I will say is that I have a very clear mission and have had this mission since I entered the space. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a lawyer by training, but I switched over into tech and into CPG and hardware because I understood that there was just a dearth of opportunity for people of color, Black people, and Black women in particular,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to develop products that serve our specific pain points and that
Mm-hmm.
heal our pain. And so I try my best to open myself up to as many women as possible who come into my inbox. The reality is, I'm still small potatoes, but there are very, very, very few women and Black women in this space. And so I try to give as many people the roadmap as I can.
You talk about roadmaps because I build roadmaps myself. So I definitely like what you're saying. So you say you started off as in like you was a lawyer. Are you still in school to become a lawyer, or you just decided to go into entrepreneurship full time?
No, yeah, I am way past school. I graduated from law school in 20 when I was 25. I am 38 now, Lord Jesus. So it has been a very long road.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer in school, and I don't practice. To be honest, I never practiced.
Mm-hmm.
To me, practicing law felt like what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're like the famous football player's girlfriend, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
out on the field, you're back in his, dorm room folding his laundry.
Yeah.
I'm not a laundry folding type chick, okay?
Yeah.
Who's on the field. And so that's what lawyering just felt like, doing the dirty work. And I wanted to
Yeah.
do fun, hard, risky work. And so when I came out of law school, I went into politics in roundabout way, ended up in tech, and here we are.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I really like about you, because I like a hustler, you know. So it's like when I see somebody hustling, definitely it's definitely a good thing, because not a lot of people understand what you can go through, a lot of stress, but I completely understand. So when you had to reschedule it, I completely
Mhm.
understand, because I'm a business owner myself and I had to reschedule. So I was like, okay, next time is cool, because I
Yeah, that was
understand
amazing.
things can get busy, and I feel as though not a lot of people understand that as well. Like sometimes you're just gonna have to reschedule it, and then next time y'all talk, the next time y'all talk, but it feels like y'all
I
talk forever.
should've. Yeah, I'm so
Yeah, yeah,
ability. There
yeah,
were a lot of people that I had to
uh,
reschedule with, and
yeah, yeah,
a lot of them weren't as gracious as you are. So
yeah.
thank you.
Nah. Do you do a lot of podcasts yourself? Or like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
try to, get our name out there as much as
Yeah.
possible. Talk
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
people.
So I know a lot of people, they think that you're now with Shark Tank, you got investors from Marky Man Greed, and now they think like they probably thinking like, okay, like you're at the top of the top, but you're telling me that right now you're still a small size. Like why is that the case?
Yeah. So, excuse me. Shark Tank is really complicated because I am in hardware, tech-enabled hardware. Tech-enabled hardware has a
Mm-hmm.
very high barrier to entry, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we get our funding from venture investors. Shark Tank investors are more like angel investors. So they write smaller checks. They usually, their valuations coincide to smaller valuations. And so we didn't get a ton of money from Shark Tank, just the way the numbers worked out.
Mm-hmm.
We get a ton of money from them. So we're still raising money. And I'm still hands on the ground doing all the work, just like I did
Understood.
before. Yeah, still very small team to try to
Mm-hmm.
make all the things happen.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We're gonna talk after this podcast on how I can help you out as well. As you may know, I'm in the tech field. I've been in this tech field for 8 years, so I'm a project manager. So I
Mm.
manage tech teams as well. But I started off entrepreneurship in fashion. I was making clothes, so I was in DC Fashion Week and stuff. So I've
I know that.
I've I've had a thing with products and making products and stuff. So like definitely seeing what you're doing. I feel as though people don't understand what investment is, like getting investor money, like what additional work you have to be put in. Because I just went to Techstars event. I met a lot of people there.
Yes.
I thought I
Mhm.
would see you there, but I understand, maybe I don't
I
know.
tried to make it. I was on
Yeah.
the train to New York that
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Nah. So like, can you tell me about about coming from Techstars to Shark Tank? Like how did all of that transition? Because I know with you getting onto Shark Tank, that definitely helped boost Techstars to another level, especially in the Baltimore area. Like it definitely got the name out there even more. So.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really crazy time
Mhm.
because last year, 2023, was a
Mhm.
really, really tough time for
Mhm.
fundraising. So we had a round of funding locked up while we were in Techstars. So we
Mhm.
had investors who were committed to fulfilling our entire round.
Mhm.
Um, but because the market is so tough, those investors weren't able to adequately fund their funds, which meant
Mhm.
we didn't get funded, which
Mhm.
meant we found ourselves at the end of Techstars. We
Mhm.
found ourselves in a position where we needed more money quickly. And
Mhm.
so luckily, we had already applied to Shark Tank. The
Mhm.
invitation just happened to come through a little
Mhm.
while after the Techstars graduation.
Mhm.
And we just jumped onto the show and just happened to get a deal. It all happened very
Mhm.
organically.
Yeah, no, you definitely brought up a good point that everything happened organically because, like I said, people don't understand like investment, getting investment. They have to have a return as well. Like they people are not gonna just put unless they truly believe you and they're just giving the money without expecting nothing in return. It's like that's definitely something to look after. So I definitely want to talk about today's topic about how to sell your product. I tell people all the time, if I was to restart my career in college, I would have done an internship in sales. I would have
Mhm.
first started my job role in sales. I feel as
Yeah.
though. So can you share like the story behind your initial inspiration of your product? I know you got two companies, right? But do they
Yep.
all work coincide with each other?
They do. They're both product companies in the beauty space. They both have a
Mm-hmm.
hardware nexus. And so
Mm-hmm.
our first brand, The Most, was really an attempt to understand the space
Mm-hmm.
and to convince investors that we understood the space enough for them to invest.
Mm-hmm.
And so our Ritualist brand, our second brand, is really kind of a leveling up from that. And the two brands still coincide. They still kind of work together really beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a leveling up. And it's been really difficult. Look, getting this product to market and fundraising and
Yeah.
all the things has been very, very hard, but we're
Mm-hmm.
so excited to finally have 5 years of R&D under our belts and have a
Yeah.
product and be able to get it into customer hands.
May I ask you, do you think about your product when you're sleeping too? Like is your business always on your mind? Like
Oh,
as a
I have
CEO, I feel as
dreams.
though.
Yeah, I have dreams about pitches, and I wake up thinking that I missed a pitch or that I did
Mm,
something terrible and my business collapsed. A lot of the times in that moment between like sleeping and waking up, where you're kind of in that middle phase,
mm.
I'm just in my head. I'm planning my day and thinking about all the things that I can't afford to let, all the balls that I can't let drop.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you actually manage your day? Do you have like a set schedule? Like, do you plan the night before, or like what do you do?
There's a combination of things. There's several touch points throughout my week. Every Sunday, there's an alarm on my calendar at 7 p.m. And I just, take a half hour to look at my schedule, see what's going on that week, see if there are any things that I need to reschedule, just get a sense of the lay of the land. And then I start making a list of my to-dos, those things that I can't get
Mm,
out of my mind that are
mm,
keeping me up at night, right?
mm,
I make a list of them. And sometimes I
mm,
schedule an hour for each of those tasks to
mm.
put to. front of them. Then in the morning, on Monday mornings are my personal time to get all of my personal things done. So that's
Mm,
laundry, errands, shopping, dry cleaners, all that stuff. And so from about 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 a.m., I'm doing my stuff for me. And then,
100%.
we start taking calls for the business promptly at 10 a.m. on Monday.
Okay, okay. So are you a small size company? Like how many people are in your team currently?
Yeah, there are four of us.
Okay.
Very, very
And so
team.
four including you?
Four, including me. Yep.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. So I wanna definitely dive into like selling your product. Like, I feel as though a lot of people they feel as though like when you get into sales, they don't want to like promote their product because they feel as though they're annoying somebody, right? They feel as though
Yeah.
like cause it's like cold calling, but it's also like you gotta convince them to buy. How what is your approach to like selling your product to the market space?
Yeah, I identify with that person so much. I hate selling. I hate it. And everybody always says, but you sell so well. We see you on TV, like we see you selling and you do a great job.
Yeah.
But it's a different thing when you're standing in front of a person and saying, hey, can you like give me your money for this thing? Because the reality is, I didn't really start this company to make money. I started this company because there was a problem and I
Mm,
needed a solution. So I made a solution.
yeah.
I never meant to be a salesperson. And so, what I've started doing and what works really well for me, I'm selling, right? If I'm at an in person event and I'm talking to a customer, I don't, I'm so sorry. I don't talk to them about why they should buy it. I talk about myself. I tell them
Yeah.
how I use it. I tell them
Mm,
how my best friend uses it, right?
yeah.
I tell them about the stuff that matters to me. And that lets me be natural and it lets me get really excited about the things that I'm naturally really excited about. And it takes away the anxiety of trying to put pressure on that person to sell. They either connect the dot and they identify with my pain points or they don't. There's a better way to sell. There's a more robust way to sell. But
Mm.
this is the way of selling that works for me right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I just want to go a little bit deeper down. So, what exactly is your product you're selling? So, what? So, I know you're selling a tech-enabled product, but can you go a little bit deeper? Like, what product are you selling, and what is the solution to that product that you're offering?
Got it. Okay, so here's the problem. The problem that we're solving is textured hair styling and maintenance.
Mhm.
So textured hair, people don't always realize when you have type 3, type 4 afro textured hair, it takes hours to style every time you style, right? So if you think, Vanud, about every
Yeah,
time that you get
yeah.
in the shower and wash your hair, how often do you wash your hair?
Like once a week.
Okay. So imagine like once a week having to spend like 3 hours on your hair. It's a
Uh,
lot.
yeah,
It's
it
a
is
lot.
a lot. That is a
And for
lot.
people who are doing things like working out
Yeah,
and, scalp gets sweaty, you want to wash your scalp after you work out.
yeah,
But we can't wash our scalp after we work out because you got to wash your scalp and then you got to restyle, and that's going to take three
yeah.
hours. And you don't necessarily have 3 hours after every single time you work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we've tried to do is create a system that very simply makes the process faster, easier, and more convenient. We did that by leveraging a pod system. That pod system comes pre-filled with your favorite liquid products, your curl creams, your gels, etc. And then you pop that pod into the tool. The tool very gently warms and conditions your products. And that
Wow.
gentle warming unlocks all kinds of value. It makes detangling have less friction. With less friction, you're able to detangle faster and healthier with less breakage. So we're seeing something like 50% time savings for our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing like 70% reduction in hair shedding and breakage, which is massive for this customer.
Yeah. No, definitely. You brought up a good point. I know a lot of people like, especially with hair texture. Maybe I got this wrong, but you know how like some people as they age, they lose hair faster, and that's because of like
Yes,
genetics and stuff. So does your
yes.
product also help with that as well?
It does. I mean, we can't change the root causes of
Yeah.
shedding or breakage or damage, but we can make your regular styling processes as gentle as possible to minimize it. As you may know from kind of seeing me on
Yeah.
LinkedIn,
Yeah.
uh, I developed my product while I was in the hospital for cancer treatment. And so I actually didn't lose all of my hair, but my hair did thin substantially.
Yeah.
part of the reason that I was able to keep so much of my hair is because I believe is I was using my mint, and that mint decreased the amount of friction every time I styled.
Okay, okay, yeah, no, that's definitely important. So right now, where are you selling your product in, like different stores, or like is there anything locally, or is it?
Yeah, so right now we're completely D2C. We're teeing up for retail in 2025.
Okay,
But right now we're really focusing on getting our marketing flywheel really tight and getting
yeah.
our supply chain really tight. Those two things are really tricky for tech-enabled products.
Oh,
And so we're really focusing on that so that when we get into retail, we'll be able to sell through nicely.
yeah. So do you make your products yourself?
We have contractors and subcontractors who physically make the product.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, we have a manufacturing team actually based here in Baltimore. I don't know if you're familiar with Harbor Designs. I'm sure you've kind of seen them around.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mm.
they do our product development, they do our engineering, and they work with subcontractors to source parts and pieces. And then we do our assembly in-house here in Baltimore.
Okay, no, definitely. I definitely love what you're saying. I definitely want to talk about like from product so there's ideation and there's that product and there's that selling. So for somebody who wants to make a product, how should they go about making a product? Because one thing I say, I'm more of a service based company, but I'm gonna get a product soon. But for a person who wants to make a product, can you give like a step by step in your own theory, like what do you think to it is to make a product? Like where should they go and stuff?
Yeah, so there's flexibility within the framework, right? So there are lots of different pieces of the puzzle that can be moved around, but the framework is pretty solid, right? The first thing you want to do is focus on customer interviews. As I mentioned before, tech-enabled hardware and really any physical product, it has a really high barrier to entry. You're going to spend a lot of time on
Mm-hmm.
development, engineering and manufacturing. And so you want to be sure to make sure that what you're creating actually solves your customer's problem.
Mm.
There's nothing worse than spending thousands, if not millions of dollars on development, and you're creating a solution that nobody wants. So you got to get out there and start creating a community of people who can serve as your beta testers, as your customer interviews, as
Mm-hmm.
the people who are really excited about your product and who are going to help you spread the word, right? Your early fan base. That's the first thing you're going to do. It sounds so soft, but it is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Um, then you're going to start with early design. Now, depending on what your product is and your field of expertise, how you do that early design is going to differ. I'll tell you how I did. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a manufacturer. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any training in this space. But I saw that there was a problem, and I had some early hypotheses about what kinds of things would work. And so I went out to CVS and to Ace Hardware, and I bought up all of the combs and brushes I could. And then I went to Ace Hardware and I bought up all of the hinges and soldering irons and doodads that I could.
Uh-huh.
And then I came home and I just started tinkering. I
Oh
came home
snap.
and literally just made a prototype. You just make a prototype.
Oh
And then
wow.
that early group of people that you developed who you've been talking to about their problems and you're talking about your proposed solution, you go to them with that prototype. You say, hey, I've got a really ugly monster of a prototype, but tell me what you think about this, right?
Yeah, like a
And
minimal
then,
viable product basically.
yes, now this was really, really, really
Oh,
minimal.
okay, okay.
Yes. And so, kind of like an MVP, you go out, you get some early feedback,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just start iterating. They give you feedback. They say, well, I wish it did this. Well, I wish it looked like this. And then you make some changes. Then you go back to them, you get more feedback. And then once you've gotten it as tight as you can at that stage with your skills,
Mm-hmm.
then you start investing money into actual prototypes. Now, I happen to have lived in China for some time.
Oh
So I
wow.
had a couple of contacts in that space that I reached out to and who were really helpful, guiding me to the right team so that I could get some early prototyping done. Now, here's the genius of what we did in on our team. A lot of folks who are U.S. based and who don't have an extensive offshore network, they tend to spend a lot of money on US engineering. And engineering in the US is going to be very, very costly. We did a lot of our early engineering. We did 3 prototypes um, uh, that corresponded to 3 different theories of design. We did all of that work offshore early in the process. And with that work, we were able to essentially see all of the major variables that the product would need to be functional. And we were able to test those variables. And
Mm.
then at the end of that process, we had a fairly functional prototype. Was it perfect? Did it need more industrial design? Yes, yes, yes. But it did what we needed to do, and it was enough for me to do two things. One, go to investors and get those investors to get behind me. Now, there's a long story behind that. They put me through a lot of
Yeah.
hoops, but basically, that prototype allowed me to get money in the door. And with that money, we were able to go to US designers and US manufacturers, really commercialize this technology that we had built, make sure all the bells and whistles worked, get partnerships with people in the space who could help us do testing and refinement, and then we were able to get it to market. That is a very truncated version of what it took to get to market, but I hope
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cause I know different podcasts have different reasons why they do the podcast. I think with my podcast for sure, I want audience to like get a piece of notebook and actually take notes on like how they doing what they're doing. So want to ask you about product versus service based. Like, what do you think is best? Because I know a lot with like just accelerator programs, they want more product based companies,
Mhm.
and I'm more of a service based. So like, what do you think? I guess it just depends on if what's selling, right? I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think there is no answer to this question.
Yeah.
I think what you got to do when you're considering which route to go down, you have to sit and really be clear on your values and your goals, Vanud, right?
Yeah.
You have to say, listen, I want to build $1 billion company and get acquired by Pepsi Cola and go on to be a, unicorn founder, right? If that's what you want to do, then you probably want to have some kind of product based business, whether that's a physical tech
Yeah.
enabled product, whether that's a SaaS product, whether that's a, some other kind of tech product. You want to make sure that you have something that's highly, 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 highly scalable.
100%.
Now, if on the other hand, you say, you know what, if I'm bringing in 25K a month, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
Um, is you can absolutely achieve that and exceed that in a service-based business. And so I think it really depends on what you're looking to do. Are you looking to just have the kind
Mm.
of business where you can have a easy, kind of flexible life and
Mm.
make a decent amount of money and have something to pass down to your kids? Or are you looking for, something different?
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely a lot. I think it just depends on how big you want your company to be. Because I know there's consulting companies that are very small, but the C level suites, the founder, he makes a good enough money to be able to live financially free and stuff. But then he would basically say that he would basically say that I don't want to grow my company to really really high, because at that point things get stressful, it gets more stressful. So
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on if you want a small, medium, or large size company and stuff. So.
Yeah, and it also comes down to risk tolerance, right?
Mhm.
If you're doing a service-based business, most services, think about it, most services, there's a market for that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so if you're a decent service provider, you'll be able to find business. But
yeah.
with new products, with tech products, there's a lot of risk. Will you be able to fundraise enough money? Will you be able to make the market accept it? Will you be able to find product market fit? Will you be able to do all of the things that lead to that huge exit? So
Yeah.
a lot of it also comes down to risk. Can you tolerate the
The
risk for
risk.
that bigger win?
Yeah. Let me. I want to ask you something. I saw this podcast earlier. This is not what the podcast is about. But I'm gonna ask you. They said through pain and suffering, you learn the most lessons, and you achieve things at a greater cost. Do you think that's true in a sense?
1000%. Absolutely. 1000%. So, this road has been particularly hard. I chose literally the hardest vertical
Yeah.
in tech. The only thing that could make this harder is if my, product were some kind of medical device and I had to get FDA
Oh.
certification, but I don't have that, praise God. So, and then in addition to that, I'm making tech enabled products that are geared towards the needs of people of color and women of color and Black women in particular. particular. That makes it even harder to fund because there are a lot fewer people who understand those pain points and who want to invest. Then on top of that, I am a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have to tell you, Vanud, but Black women we over-index in terms of
Mm-hmm.
how many businesses we're starting in the tech sphere, but we under-index in terms
Mm-hmm.
of how much money we're getting in the space, and we
100%.
under-index by a lot. The figure is 0.0006% of venture funding goes to Black women. Again, even though we're overperforming and even though we're starting businesses at a
Mm-hmm.
higher rate. And so the likelihood of being able to get this money and to be able to get the support we need to do what we need to do was very, very shallow.
Yeah.
However, you will not hear me complaining. You used to hear me complaining, but you won't hear me complaining going forward, because here's what that period taught me. Because people had so little faith in me as an entrepreneur, because people were constantly doubting me, even when I was showing clear expertise, it taught me to be at the top of my game and to have attention to detail and to be the most meticulous founder one can possibly be. And so
Mm-hmm.
now that I've established myself, people kind of know my name a little bit. When I walk into rooms, the conversation is different. They
Mm-hmm.
know that when Dawn says she's going to do this impossible thing, she does in fact do that impossible thing.
Yeah.
They open the checkbooks, they do the things, they get behind me, and that lets us grow faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long road, and as I mentioned, I got diagnosed with cancer and went
Mm-hmm.
through cancer treatment while we were raising $1 million and launching a new brand. It was easily the hardest period of my life, but because of that period, again, I'm an even more efficient
Strong.
founder. I had to figure out how to work while I was on chemo treatment,
Yeah.
right? We basically formulated my chemo treatment plan around the needs of my work needs. We were really resourceful. We were really efficient with our time. There was only maybe 5 days, 5 working days a month where I was at full capacity and I could take calls and I could do pitches. And so we had to make sure that we were fitting everything we needed to fit into those 5 days per month. And we were also making sure that we were doing it in a way that was still gentle on my body. And so we've learned to be extraordinarily efficient, extraordinarily lean, and have an extraordinarily high standard of production. And that combination, if I may toot my own horn, if we win, and we will win,
Yeah.
be because of the lessons that I learned during that time.
No, definitely. You brought up a good point because I have a couple of business partners. My business partner says that if you don't fail in life and if you don't have struggles, you're not gonna get to where you are, because if you have everything just given to you, what are you learning? At the end of the day, everything is just normal to you. But through those suffering, through those lessons, you just start to learn. You start to learn how to like overcome obstacles like that and like be able to like get to where you're at. I'm glad to hear that you're doing better, you're feeling healthy and stuff. So I'm definitely really glad to hear that. As we move forward, I do want to talk about like what are some lessons have you learned, being an entrepreneur, going through what you just said that you went through. What are some like very, very key lessons that people should know? Not even in the business space. Just talk about like
Life.
life. Like, we can even bring in like mental wellness into it. Like what are some like lessons that you've learned or advice?
Oh God, there's so much. The first thing that comes to mind is discernment. I mean, you know this, Vanud, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start a company, people
Yeah.
want to come to you and say, yeah, 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 if you give me this money, then I'm gonna do this, this, and this for you. And 97% of those people are completely full of it. But you learn to
Mm-hmm.
be able to filter those people out immediately. Here's the thing though, as an entrepreneur, when you have people with real talent and something to offer, you can't afford to pass those people up, right? So what happens to a lot of early entrepreneurs is they're just taking help from everywhere, and not all of that help is good help. You learn how to discern between good help and good counsel and
Wow.
otherwise really quickly. That has been a great lesson. Another lesson has been just leadership, right? How do I become the best leader that I can be? How do I hold my team to task and push us as far as we can go on our small team and on our small budget,
Mm-hmm.
but do it in a way that's compassionate and loving. That's important to me. I
Mm-hmm.
came from a corporate culture that was really toxic, and that really kind of drilled me into the ground. And I didn't want to replicate that here,
Yeah.
right? And so We've been really intentional about building a culture that's, again, loving and compassionate, but challenging, and real. Some of my other kind of lessons are just around understanding myself, right? You can look at other people who've been successful in a space and say, oh, I have to do it the way that they did it. But you have to listen to yourself and know your own strengths,
Yep.
right? You got to know that, listen, the other person who got $1 billion exit, that person was a really great salesman. I'm not. I don't feel comfortable selling. I've got to do this a different way. I've
Yep.
got to lean on different skills, right?
Yep.
So being really in tune with yourself and being willing to feel, this makes me uncomfortable, but this other thing I can really lean into, and being willing to say no when there's a lot of pressure for you to say yes,
Mhm.
those skills will take you really.
No, you definitely said something. I tell everybody you gotta write your own story. I got my close friends, multimillionaires. Like I got friends in like e-commerce, like living in Miami and stuff.
Yep.
But the one thing is, I've never ever compared my journey to their journey. Like I
Absolutely.
never, and that's one thing I tell people is what is the worst thing that a person can have is gossiping about others. Because I feel as though when you gossip about others, you're letting somebody take control of your mind. And it's like I tell people all the time, don't be judgmental. I feel as though everybody's so judgmental, right? Oh, what is he or she? What is he doing? Or this. And then they focus on what you gotta do and write your own story. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. They both did somewhat of the same thing, but they don't have their own stories. So I tell people all the time, like when you look at the media, you look at you know how it is. Like when you look at Instagram, you know how like people like they want to have they have this lifestyle, and you look at that lifestyle, and then you'd be like, oh, I want to live that lifestyle. But you got to realize, like, sometimes just be grateful for the things that you have right now, and if you want to get to that lifestyle, understand that, recognize that, but don't compare yourself to that, because at the end of the day, everybody's going to write their own story. And I really resonate with you because you and me both came as educators, and that's
Yep.
something I tell people all the time. I got into tech the most non-traditional route anybody could have taken. I tell you, teaching has given me opportunities I never thought I would imagine. I got a master's program. Like I went into teaching underserved kids in Baltimore because I've had an extreme passion for helping people out, getting them tech certification. So you and me both went into teaching. Then I got into more of the management route. And I feel as though, like, one thing I tell people is like, then I got another friend who does e-commerce. So more on the stories, like, you gotta write your own story. You can't look at other people and then compare yourself to others.
Yeah, that's exactly right. 100% agreed.
Yeah. So I know you teach, right? So do you still teach? Or
Do.
okay, okay. Where do you teach at?
Yeah, so I teach a class at Georgetown, and it's a really special class. This is a class at Georgetown Social Justice Initiative, and this social justice initiative includes programming called the Pivot Program, and the Pivot Program is people who are transitioning back into society from incarceration. And one of the things that we used to see is that a lot of these students were having a really difficult time getting and holding jobs
Yeah.
because of their status. And so we teach them entrepreneurial skills, and for a select few,
Wow.
they go on to start businesses and be able to, create stability and financial wellness for themselves and for their families.
Wow. Yeah, no, definitely. That's really great. Yeah, something that what you did, I've also was kind of involved in, like helping people who were incarcerated get into more of like tech jobs and stuff. So I feel like there's something you and me both share, that we have a passion of helping others. I tell people all the time. I'm gonna tell you one thing that my best friend told me. Like, if you let he said, don't let your dream overshadow the money. Basically meaning, if you go into business, go into because you want to do it, but don't put the money, because of course the money is going to come, but if money is the first thing on your mind, you're never going to succeed because you're letting your dream overshadow the money.
And here's the thing, even if you do succeed,
Yeah.
all you will have is money. Here's the
Yeah.
thing. I love my life, right? I can't complain. Look at this view, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not too bad. But here's the thing. I don't do this for the money, and I don't make a ton of money
Mm.
yet.
Mm.
Hopefully one day we will.
Mm.
but I am so happy. I was making twice this when I was a decade younger, working in big law firms, and I was absolutely miserable. I hated my life every day. I am so happy every morning when I wake up and I control my time and I get to use my creativity to make my livelihood, and I'm the boss
Yeah.
and I get to do the things that matter to me. It is the absolute best. And so,
Yeah.
money, even if you end up making it, even if you have success with money, that's not necessarily success. It's not success until you have a mission, you have a purpose
100%.
to live it.
100%. I tell people all the time, like for me, like when I got into got into teaching, it was because I really enjoyed what I was doing. Byproduct, the money came. It wasn't because I had money. Like because I enjoy what I'm doing, byproduct, the money came. Just like for example, when people buy Lamborghinis or McLarens or those high exotic cars, they because of the work that they put in, byproduct that car came into their life. They bought that
Yep.
car. So I definitely want to talk about as we move forward. So I know you shared a lot about your background and I'd like to talk about the impact of storytelling. I feel as though storytelling is something where people want to hear your background. People want to hear your story.
Yeah.
How do you think like you go about telling your story? Like is there a way that you go about it when it comes to marketing?
Yes, yes and no. I think, listen, marketing is a monster and it has so many pieces, SEO and blogs and Instagram and social media and
Yeah.
ads. There's so many pieces to the puzzle.
Mhm.
But ultimately, all at the end of the day, it is a person kind of speaking their truth as authentically as possible to the
Mhm.
people around them. And that's all we have, right?
Mhm.
I'm a smart lady, right?
Mhm.
But I'm not an engineer. I'm not a marketing phenom. I'm not a celebrity with a huge following. I'm not even a beautician. I'm in the beauty space. I'm not a salonist. I'm not a cosmetologist. All I have is my story. All I have is a pain point that millions of other women and men also have.
Mhm.
All I have is the ability to tell that story effectively and tell that story effectively not just to customers but also to the people who can support us and get behind us and help us grow. So storytelling, it's not a part of the business, it has been the
Cause it has
business.
been the business. So yeah, no, definitely. So you definitely talk about like getting in front of people. What can you tell my audience on like how to get in front of people? I tell people all the time networking is really important. Having a LinkedIn account and like having a personal branding is very important. So what are
Mhm.
some ways to like get in front of people and like promote your product or service?
So you've already said a lot of the key things, so I'm going to take it a step deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done the basic foundational things, you're going to the local events and you're going to the kind of national events that are in your sector, and you've got the LinkedIn profile, right? The next thing you want to do is start to lead with value, right? So one of the reasons that I've been able to do what I've done in my space is because when I first got into the space, I didn't just jump in and become a founder, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that whatever I was saying made sense and that
Mm-hmm.
whatever I was saying was erudite and educated and substantiated. So, what I did is I took actual positions. I worked at various ecosystem organizations, namely Black Girl Ventures, Startups Ignite, and the Veneta Project, all local at the time, local, now national organizations that were designed to help people and minorities in particular in tech.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that, and that was invaluable experience. I was a founder, but I was also in this position where I get to be a fly on the wall in the back rooms where the VCs are having conversations about how they evaluate these companies. I got to learn the lingo. I got to learn how folks talk about and think about the space.
Yeah.
And so as I kind of switch my attention back to being a founder and back to my companies, all of a sudden people are looking at me like, how does she know that? And how does she two together? And how does she put together that business strategy?
Most
Strategy.
definitely.
Well, because I studied. It was
Yeah.
because I put in the extra work to make sure that I understood what I was talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely think with that also being said too, I've also dealt with like some stuff where I'll put my business out there and then some people they just don't want to talk. Have you ever dealt with that where like you've tried to like talk to somebody and they just kind of like brushed you off a little bit or they just kind of be
Of
like
course,
and then
every day.
especially after like you got through Shark Tank, you know how like people there's always a lot of people that hate and there always people that does criticism. Have you dealt with that where you try to talk to somebody and they just had some sort of like animosity towards you and they just kind of brushed
Yep.
you off?
Every day. It still happens all the time. We just had a post go viral on TikTok. We got like 4 million views, which is really amazing. But we only got virality because everybody was talking mess in the comments. Like it was just a viral post of hate. And that's fine because it went viral. We got a lot of exposure and reach from it. So, you have to, and I'm still working on this because this is my baby. And it's really hard to watch people say mean things about your
I
baby.
know.
Right, but you have to figure out how to develop that thick skin and you have to figure out how to let it slide off of your back and take those silver linings.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. It's a messed up world we live in, right? Like especially me, I'm a very open book. I'm a person who doesn't judge anybody. I'm very very happy for people's success, and it's crazy. It's sad to say. It's like look at the news media, right? It's always those bad news. It's always about things that are happening bad or like the crimes that goes viral that people actually listen to, but they don't want to hear the good things, you know. So it's like it's weird. It's like especially like with news media stuff. What I'm trying to say is like they always promote more of like the bad things that are happening in the world than more the promoting of the good thing, what's happening in the future and stuff. So I definitely like to talk about what you just said about having like hate in the comments as well. I know some people like they probably can't take that, right? They probably it'd be running in their
Mhm.
head all. How do you think that like having hate in the comments and stuff like how do you like take that approach? Like what is something you do or you just
I was one of those people before we called it cyberbullying, right? Because it was still kind of a new
yeah.
concept. I was bullied, a cyber bully. This is years ago, when I was back in college. And so when I started this company and I had to get back on social media, I really wasn't on social media.
Yeah.
I had a Facebook with like my close friends and family, but I
Yeah.
wasn't on social media trying to get a following. And so having to put myself out there and make myself vulnerable to that again was really scary. And listen, for me, it's just been about an iterative approach. You put your toe in, you just start the account, then you put up one post,
Mhm.
then you put up two posts, right? Like it's just baby steps and getting more comfortable with that space. And with
Mhm.
every one of those baby steps, you're going to get a little bit more hate. But you learn to just absorb a little bit of that hate a little bit more every time.
Mhm.
Now I've got a team. That team really shelters me from a
Yeah.
lot of in the comments. They take care of it. So I'm very lucky to have them. But yeah, it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's never easy.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So as we wrap this up, I just have a few more questions I want to ask you. Your team, how did you meet your team? Like, were these people that are your close friends, or like just wondering, like, for somebody who wants to form a team, me it
Mhm,
happened so unexpectedly. It was partners I met in school. They believed in
mhm.
me way before I had a business. Like they was like like let's like they I've always knew I wanted to partner with them, but like there's always different ways to build a team, but I never had to forcefully go out there and build a team because when you forcefully go out there, I feel as though the connection is not there. So, how did you
Yeah.
build your team? Your
Yeah.
internal team.
Listen, I believe in building a team full of people who are passionate, who are also passionate about the thing that you are building, right?
Yeah.
And you come across those people organically. Michael, who kind of leads our marketing, he came to us. I don't even remember how I met Michael, but I met him almost maybe a decade ago when I first entered into this space. And he was just really gung ho about supporting me. And so, he did some projects for me. He became kind of like a little brother.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity came up for us to work together again. And he's so passionate he's probably at least as passionate, if not more passionate, about kind of making this pop than I am, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. Then there's Sarah. Sarah actually came through to me through Techstars. In my Techstars cohort, one of the other companies, Black Hedge, was run by a young man who was really talented, and his wife was looking for a position in tech, and she had just the expertise that we were looking for, and so we brought her on. Ganesh was a referral from an advisor of ours, and he turned out to be really gung-ho about making it all work and making it come together. And so, it just kind of came together organically, like
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
things in this space.
Okay, okay, yeah, no, no problem. No, that definitely sounds good. I definitely think, when you're having a team, you gotta have the right team too. I feel as though if you form a team where like that person is not as motivated as you and they don't understand that vision, that's when
It's not.
things can go upside down. So I definitely want to talk about just a few more questions. So your relationship with Mark Cuban and Emma Grede. So
Yeah,
how did that influence your strategy moving forward with your business? Like, do you guys talk on a daily, like,
not
this is what you do daily?
daily.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, these guys are people, right?
yeah,
It's just like any
yeah,
other
yeah,
relationship. Mark has companies, and some of those companies are my friends, right?
yeah.
Where they have a really tight relationship. They go back 3 or 4 years, and they talk on a daily, just kind of, shooting the stuff and
Mm-hmm.
saying, catching up on each other's lives. We're not there yet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
we'll get there, but for
Uh,
right now, I keep it to updates and high level advice. I'm actually going through it with Mark a little bit right now because there's a debate about, a point of business. He has one opinion, I have a different opinion. And so we're kind of going back and forth right now, but it's just been wonderful to
uh,
kind of go through this process with such a high level person who's seen
yeah,
just about every iteration of this process as
yeah.
possible. Emma's been amazing as well. She's been a
Uh,
huge advocate for me with all of our other stakeholders. And these guys, again, it's a relationship. It's
Yep.
not like one day they're your investor and then the next day you're $1 billion company.
That's what
Um,
I feel that that's what people think it is, but I think it's
is
not
what
what it
you think, and that's not how it goes.
is.
These are people at the end of the day. Emma wants to spend her time on a company that's going somewhere, so you
Of
got to show her
course. It's
somewhere.
it's a it's a business transaction. At the end of the day, it's a business transaction. But you brought up a very good point: building relationships. Like I tell people all the time, to get to where I'm at. Be completely honest with you, my resume did absolutely nothing for me, and my
Hmm.
work experience actually did nothing for me too. It was because I
Hmm.
was really good at talking to people, and I tell people all
Hmm.
the time, you gotta learn how to communicate. You gotta learn how to talk to people. You gotta learn how to get people in your corner and have dinner with them, and like you gotta learn all those skills. And I feel that that's something where, like, I tell people all the time, put yourself out there. But then again, I also understand people have different personalities. Not a lot of people want to put themselves out there too.
It's hard.
Yeah, yeah. So as we wrap up, so what's next for your company? What do you see in the future? And
Growth,
I'm gonna
growth,
see
growth,
you on the
growth.
billboards all over Baltimore. But
I don't know.
do you have
I don't know.
something like you're looking forward to the next couple of months?
We have a lot of things we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
Some of them are bigger than others.
Uh.
Our products right now are on pre-sale, and our products are landing in a matter of weeks. And so gearing up for that has been really exciting, but also really stressful.
Yeah.
We're fundraising, and so we're out, hunting for additional checks and support and people to kind of add value to our cap
Yeah.
table. So that's always stressful, but really exciting.
Uh.
We've got some really amazing projects on the
Uh.
horizon
Uh.
with brands that we've kind of contemplated larger partnerships with. And so
Uh.
those are exciting, but there's so much. None of those things happen. For every one of those things, there's like 30 things that need to happen before any of
Yeah.
those can
I
actually progress.
Yeah, I do want to ask that. Like, this is really important. So, like, how do you manage that? Like, I know you got your team, but you got 30 things to do that. So, are you writing all those 30 things down on your to do list for that week, or like, and then you just try to attack it every single day?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I have
Yeah,
a to-do list for the week, and then I just try to, portion everything out over the
yeah.
course of those days. And hopefully I get through everything on the list. If I don't get through
You
everything
put
on the
on the
list,
next
it
week.
moves to
Yeah,
the next day.
yeah,
Yep. And, there's usually carryover from week to week, and it's really stressful because it's
yeah.
very very rare that I actually get down to zero and it's all
Do
done.
do you have relaxed time? I did. Well, let me relax
No,
time. Do
I
you?
do.
How do you take care? Like, do you like go out like the spa or like do you?
Yeah, no, I go to ballet class. I go to
Okay.
ballet class. I spend time with my guy.
Uh.
We make really nice dinners.
Uh.
For me, it's really the simple things, right? Having, a couple of hours to make a very simple dinner
Uh.
with a really nice glass, with some really nice music. That to me is a special kind of heaven. It's waking up early, 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 early in the morning
Uh.
to pray and to journal and
Understand.
to have my cup of tea. And I
Yeah.
make these really amazing teas where with muddled raspberries and blueberries and blackberries and all kinds of amazing things during the summer. And, being able to enjoy that cup of tea while the sun is rising over the
Uh.
harbor, there's nothing more special. So for me, it's really about those simple pleasures.
Yeah. No, definitely. Thank you so much. So, last question I want to ask you: what's the best advice someone gave you, and what's the worst advice someone gave you?
That's hard. The best advice someone gave me. Um, there's been so much good advice. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. So I'm just going to give my favorite piece of advice, which is, girl, keep going. Just
Uh.
keep going,
Yeah.
right? Like there's going to be some crazy thing going on. It's
Uh.
not going to happen perfectly. Things are going to get in the way. Just find a way to keep
Keep
going. That's
going.
it. That's the trick. The people in the space who succeed are the people who found a way to keep going. They're not the smartest. They're not the most educated.
Yeah.
They're not the most anything. They're just the most resilient.
Uh.
The worst piece of advice that I got, early in my early years, I heard this over and over again, but there was one person in particular who said this to me and it really pissed me off. But he
Uh.
said, "You just quit.
What?
Regular people don't make tech enabled hardware. You're going to fail
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah.
And when you fail, I'll be here. And we can work on your next business, but this isn't going to work." And, this person kind of held themselves out as an authority in the space. And had I taken their advice and the advice of countless others who told me there was no way, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have this life, right? So
100%.
you have to have a deep knowing. That's another piece of advice. You have to have a deep knowing about what the value of your product and what you're bringing into the space.
No, thank you so much, Don. Stay a few minutes just to talk to you afterwards. But
Yeah,
thank you so much. I'm gonna put all her information in the podcast on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Skype, all that. So thank
yeah.
you guys so much. So I'm gonna end this recording.